What's your childhood mystery that you finally solved years later? My dad used to occasionally burst out with this one line of a song, said Barnacle Bill the sailor. Only ever that line. When I was 6 or so I asked him why and he said it was an old drinking song that was absolutely filthy and I was too young to hear the rest of it. This continued once or twice a year until I was 18. I told him I was an adult now and he could tell me the rest of the song. I distinctly remember him looking up from the newspaper, sighing and folding it, then going, "The truth is I can never remember the rest of the song." And then went right back to reading the newspaper. Your dad wasn't wrong about it being a filthy song. Web link. For those too lazy to click on the link, "Who is knocking at my door?" said the fair young maiden. "Who is knocking at my door?" said the fair young maiden. "Open the door and let me in," said Balaky Bill the sailor. "Open the door and let me in," said Balaky Bill the sailor. "You may sleep upon the floor," said the fair young maiden. "To hell with the floor, I can't F that," said Balaky Bill the sailor. "You may lie down at my side," said the fair young maiden. "To hell with your side, I can't F that," said Balaky Bill the sailor. "You may lie between my thighs," said the fair young maiden. "What have you got between your thighs?" said Balaky Bill the sailor. "Oh, I've got a nice pincushion," said the fair young maiden. "And I've got a pin that will just fit in," said Balaky Bill the sailor. "But what if we have a baby?" said the fair young maiden. "Strangle the bastard and throw him away," said Balaky Bill the sailor. "But what about the law, sir?" said the fair young maiden. "Kick the bleeders out on their ass," said Balaky Bill the sailor. "But what if there's an inquest?" said the fair young maiden. "Then shove the inquest up your vagina," said Balaky Bill the sailor. "And what about my pa and ma?" said the fair young maiden. "F your ma, and bugger your pa," said Balaky Bill the sailor. "Whenever shall I see you?" said the fair young maiden. "Whenever shall I see you?" said the fair young maiden. "Never no more, you dirty whore," said Balaky Bill the sailor. "Never no more, you dirty whore," said Balaky Bill the sailor. Balaky Bill's kind of a dick. Well, no wonder he couldn't remember the rest, it's so long. I remember being about 8, and in the car with my dad. I was in the front seat and we were driving somewhere, and this song came on the radio. He cranked it and said something about it being the best guitar playing ever. He really jammed out, which was really uncharacteristic because he was usually so stoic. It was the only time I heard the song, and he died before I could ever ask him what song it was. When I asked around, no one knew WTF I was talking about or what song I was thinking of. So I had this melody in my head for years, but how do you look up a song that has no lyrics? So for years and years, this song stayed on the back burner in my brain. I was afraid to forget it. Somehow this story pops up when I'm like 26 or so, chatting with my husband, and we searched YouTube for best guitar songs. After about 15 minutes, we find it. Cliffs of Dover was the song that I'd burned into my brain on repeat for 16 years. Now I jam out to it with my kids. Edit. Thank you so much for the kind words and awards. I'm kind of speechless at how big this post got. But thank you. My dad is a professional guitarist and he'd always play this song. Whenever he'd practice with his amp, he'd play this song, which was basically every day growing up laughing out loud. It was his theme. I didn't realize he didn't write it until I randomly heard it on the radio at work when I was in my early 20s. When I was in elementary school, I always wondered what the teacher's staff room was like. It seemed so mysterious, and I remember trying to get a peek anytime I walked by and the door would open. Later became a teacher and can fully confirm they're dull, often toxic spaces full of cranky teachers complaining about students. As a kid, I used to frequently just walk into the teacher's lounge to use their vending machines. It wasn't until years later that I found out that wasn't a perfectly normal thing to do. In hindsight, I guess they all just assumed I was in there on an errand for another teacher. As someone who occasionally microwaved my lunches there, I can confirm that they really just do not give a crap. Reverse of this, as a kid, my dad would call me from the other side of the house to bring him something to drink from the kitchen. He always drank from a straw, and in about first grade, I started getting annoyed at this, so I started poking a tiny hole in his straw as my own little vengeance. I didn't come clean about this until I was like 22 years old. The look on his face was priceless. It's like he instantly snapped back to then and knew exactly what I was talking about and just said, "Son of a, you did, didn't you?" He just thought we bought cheap straws. I have a reverse one also. Mum used to make those Betty Crocker cakes and I loved eating the batter. I would eat so much of it there would barely be any cake left. She was completely perplexed. Finally she writes a long angry email to Betty Crocker about what a farce their cake mix is because it barely makes a cake big enough to eat. They apologized profusely and sent a bunch of free cake mix. I told her in my late 20s. The look on her face. Similar story. I loved cookie dough, and we always had the tubs in the fridge. When I was fairly little I kept a butter knife and spoon hidden in my room for cookie dough raids. I would sneak into the kitchen at like 4 a.m., slide the butter knife around the fridge magnet so it didn't make the loud pop sound when you opened it, and eat cookie dough while watching cartoons on mute. My mom never understood why the cookie dough produced so few cookies. Edit to add, that butter knife served me well. Also allowed me to unwrap one end of a Christmas present without hurting the tape so I could read the end of the box and see what the present was. I visited my dad when I was 6 or 7 years old at the place where he worked, or so I was told. I remember remarking at the time, and people laughed at me, because I said it looked just like a prison. The people laughing were the guards, and I was indeed visiting my dad at Terminal Island Federal Correctional Institution where he was a federal inmate. I remember having to visit my father in prison. It's weird crap for a young kid, the lie probably did you some favors. I solved a family mystery for my mom. I wasn't allowed to play console video games during the week all the way until I was 18, but some nights I'd really be craving it, so I would noiselessly creep through my house into my basement where I could play video games in peace. But once every 30 times or so one of my parents would need something from the basement and I'd quickly turn off the TV monitor, hide in the guest room and pray they didn't turn on a light or notice the Xbox was on. One night I ducked into the guest room and hid behind the bed. To my horror, my mom followed me into the room and turned on the lights. I was panicking, so when she started digging through the closet with her back to me I made a run for it. I nearly brushed her shirt, and if she'd seen me I'd probably have given her a heart attack. But I made it and kept going all the way to bed. About 5 years went by and my mom said something like, "You're such a quiet walker," and I told her it was because of my basement trips, thinking I had nothing to lose. My mom's face went kind of solemn, and when I explained she said, "So there really was someone down there?" And she explained that she remembered that exact night and the feeling that there was a ghost in the room. Over the next couple days she'd stare into space and just say, "I can't believe you were really there." She seemed to get over it, but she probably checks empty rooms closer now. Lol, of all the ways to traumatize your parents. I had to explain to my mom that my teen sister was not potentially depressed or ill because she started needing a nap like every other day after school and would sleep really deep and only react to the second or third knock. Mom couldn't believe that she may just be diddling herself in her room. That did somewhat traumatize her. Oh God, I distinctly remember having one of the most embarrassing conversations with my mom ever at 13 years old. My mom kept asking why I started always having my door closed at night as a preteen, and would constantly knock to check up on me. Finally she just decided to unlock the door with a key and walked in on little 13-year-old me choking the chicken. She thought I was playing with fire or something else that I shouldn't have been doing for whatever reason. It apparently had never occurred to her that a 13-year-old boy would need some alone time. We were both pretty damn embarrassed. My mom had me when she was older too, like early 40s, so she came from a time when that kind of thing was simply not discussed. A key excerpt from the conversation. Mom, but every night? Me, bright as a tomato, half yelling in an attempt to end the conversation, yes, every night. Sometimes twice. Can we please stop now? Later on we both laughed about it, and I got to explain to her that in middle school it was like walking around with a half-cocked gun all day lol. It's funny because she worked as a nurse for years, she had to know what that time was like. Later on we both laughed about it, and I got to explain to her that in middle school it was like walking around with a half-cocked gun all day lol. It's funny because she worked as a nurse for years, she had to know what that time was like. You see, I'm 33 now, but my parents are still too embarrassed about sex and anything around it that looking back and laughing about it is still out of the cards. Edit, came back from an extended walk to 7K upvotes, WTF, as I've seen a few guys comment along the lines of religion is a curse, religion isn't really the issue, never was, They were just brought up in different times. Their parents couldn't talk about it, and they themselves couldn't. Like I said, they never forbade sex at all. We were free to do as we liked. No issues having girls/guys over and sleeping with them. No wait till marriage, yada yada. We're German. No one, not even the Catholics, preaches that here. They are just unable to talk about sex with their kids, equals us, and let everything work out without their active input. I'm so sorry, your poor mom, but I cannot stop actually literally in real life laughing at the idea of this. You really threw her whole world admitting to that. Ha ha. My mom used to call us in for dinner by yelling out the back door from the kitchen. I was in middle school before I realized the screen door was actually called a screen door. This one is hands down my favorite. I'm calling the screen door to my back porch a screen door from now on. We grew up poor, and at the age of 10 my friends were all having these crazy birthday parties with petting zoos, bounce houses, clowns, etc. So my mother, who is very resourceful, decided I would have a sleepover for my 11th birthday. It was great, and we were going to make ice cream cones. So we got all the stuff out with my mom, and my mother opened up the box of cones, and they were all smashed up. She said that we weren't having regular ice cream, we were having Magic Castle sundaes, because the broken ice cream cones resembles the sections of a castle. We all thought this was great, and we had them. When my friends went home, they asked their parents to make Magic Castle sundaes. 2 days ago I found out that my mother was getting the past sell-by foods behind the grocery store. They were not expired, just past sell-by date. She had no idea that the cones were brown up until she opened them with us. She thought of the Magic Castle idea quickly, and we all loved it. Just goes to show how stupid kids are, lol. Goes to show how quick-witted she was. And able to make it seem special enough the other kids wanted it too. Shows you had a good mom. Edit. Wow, thanks for the awards and this many upvotes. The most I've ever gotten. Def not expecting it. Thought this story might fit here. Growing up, I could never figure out what my dad's obsession was with ham hocks and beans. I mean, once a month, my mom would make a huge batch of ham hocks and beans, and we would feast on it for days. Days. It wasn't until I turned 17 to 18 that I figured out the reason. Times got tight towards the end of every month, and this was my parents' way of stretching the almighty dollar. My dad told me one night before he died, we were reminiscing, I actually hated ham hocks and beans. When I was really young, me and my siblings would play in my grandparents' yard. My grandfather would tell us to stay away from the skunk hole at the edge of the yard. We lived in South Texas, so this wasn't something out of the ordinary, and we just avoided it like any other animal home. Years later it dawned on me. It was actually the septic tank access. I feel like as a kid I would have been more curious about a skunk hole than a septic tank. Just me? The reason my aunt punched her husband at the pool during a huge family vacation. It was because she found out that the long-distance charges to the hotel room they shared had a ton of calls to a woman he was known to think was swell. Good golly. When I was 10, my godfather gave me $20 as a Christmas gift. At the end of the dinner, the money had disappeared. For years, my parents blamed me for being irresponsible with my money. Years later, we figured out, after she was caught stealing stuff from my aunt's house, that my cousin's fiancé at the time is a kleptomaniac. Turns out she was the one that stole the money. My uncle stole my Christmas scratch cards I won like $10 off of and never admitted it. Such a dick thing to do to a kid. Wow, you just brought back a 20-year-old memory. My uncle, who at the time lived with my grandma, used to steal money from my piggy bank for cigarettes. We all had a discussion about what I'm going to do with all my Christmas money. There wasn't much, but at least 30 pounds, mostly in banknotes. We decided I'll keep it there for a few weeks and maybe Santa will put some more in so I can get these super shiny dolly shoes all my friends had. In a week or so later there were only coins, pennies and some silver coins. My uncle convinced me that this was actually worth more. I remember it so clearly. I was so excited. I'll have my beautiful shoes and maybe even get a few laughs. I was probably 6 or so, and I was so upset when I found out that I couldn't buy the shoes I saved the money for. There was probably 2 pounds left over. My grandma knew what he was doing the whole time but sided with him anyway. He was her favorite. What a bunch of buttholes. Sorry your family stole your money. When I was 4, I vividly remember getting into my mom's car and her telling me that our cat had died. She told me how she rushed him to the vet and he was shedding fur, something was seriously wrong. Despite her best efforts, he died. I never knew why he died, and why it happened so suddenly, but I accepted that it happened. Fast forward about 15 years, I'm home from college for Christmas. On Christmas Eve, I'm out driving to the store with my dad and uncle. They are talking about the cat my parents got for Christmas one year, the cat mentioned above. My dad says, yeah, that thing was too aggressive, so I took it to a farm and gave it away. Normally, when the family pet dies, the parents lie to the kid and say it went to a farm upstate somewhere to ease the burden. Not my parents. They told me the horrifying truth even though it wasn't, true. This twist made me laugh. I imagine your dad taking it to a farm, letting it out, and off the cat goes to play with new animal friends in the barn. He tells your mom and she decides to just go with it. Died. ETA, I know that abandoning an animal at a farm, or any place, is absolutely despicable. Animals in that situation will very likely die. I couldn't even read a lot of the responses to my comment because stories of animals being treated cruelly greatly upset me. The thing that made me laugh was imaging a cartoonish, utopian version where the cat runs off with new chicken, pig, cat friends, like SNL Tiny Horse, and then cut to mom saying the cat died. I lived in a rural area. Please, for the love of God, don't set your pets free in the wild or on a farm. They'll starve to death or get eaten by wild animals. And they'll spend that entire time looking for their owners. We had plenty of animals come to our farm because people would just release them in a wooded area 10 miles away. Most of them were emaciated. A few times the pets just got lost, but many of them went unclaimed. I can't imagine how many simply didn't survive. The thing is, many farmers aren't prepared to take care of your animals. We did. A lot of them will sooner shoot them than feed them. Pets aren't built to survive on their own. They need food, water, and love. Lots of animals will prey on pets: coyotes, bears, wolves, eagles, mountain lions. If you love your pet, or even if you don't, either find a new owner or take them to a shelter. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.